Hi, everyone. Our team's really excited to present Minor Safety in the Metaverse today, our policy solution that's focused on parents specifically in the issue of child safety in the Metaverse. So to give a brief overview of the problem, child safety is a huge issue online, and we expect it to become a huge issue, of course, in the Metaverse. Along with this issue, parents are underprepared to teach their children about child safety in this new space. And while there have been a number of different guides dedicated to parents, there isn't a streamlined approach that could reach all US parents, which is our target audience, as it relates to child safety in the Metaverse. On top of that, there are multiple approaches that you could take to child safety, whether it's internally at a firm or from the perspective of regulators or policymakers. But we're choosing to focus on parents because there's extreme urgency around this issue. And sometimes the policy won't catch up to that urgency. So we want to make sure parents are informed in the meantime. Just to demonstrate the scope of this issue, 24% of Metaverse projects are related to games, and a large contingency of the audience for these games are children. On top of that, the concerns that we've seen in the beginning of the Metaverse as it's developed is that there's abuse, harassment, bullying, and financial fraud that children are at risk of experiencing that needs to be addressed right away. As an example, a BBC News researcher showed that a 13-year-old girl using a Metaverse app at one point entered a room where avatars were simulating sex. And so, again, this just speaks to the many problems and the urgency of this issue and why it needs to be addressed. So our solution is a two-pronged approach. First, we want to help to streamline the guidelines that already exist and develop a set of guidelines that are informed by a number of stakeholders in the space, including parents and including Metaverse companies and civil society organizations. So we know that these guidelines are as effective as possible. And second, once those guidelines are developed, we want to make sure that we partner with an existing organization like XR Child Safety Initiative to create an educational campaign and community workshops that really get these guidelines out to the American audience that we're targeting. So to give a sample of the parental guidance that we would draft and how that would look, we'd really categorize it into 4 separate categories. The first guideline would be around activating technical protections, and this involves using a lot of the parental control features that already exist within these apps and just teaching parents about how those work to ensure safety on the platforms. Number 2 would be to engage in encourage parental child engagement in ongoing healthy dialogues. What happens on the platform could really be mitigated if there's continued contact between parents and children that talks about how to mitigate the harms on the platform. Third, we want to make sure that parents understand that even though this is a virtual universe, there are physical protections that could be taken to ensure that, especially from an accessibility standpoint and a physical harm standpoint, children aren't harmed as they're using their headsets. And lastly, we want to make sure that parents are able to talk with their children about privacy and issues of identity theft so that we could mitigate issues with identity theft and fraudulent behavior on the platform.
So the second part to our strategy is our focus on informational campaigns and conducting educational workshops. So the community workshops will be organized through partnerships with civic organizations where we develop a national strategy and organize opportunities for parents to engage in discussions related to about issues related to the Metaverse. The rollout of the strategy is going to be incremental, starting with one state and then eventually rolling out to remaining states based on lessons learned. And the locations will be varied to make sure that a diversity of perspectives are included in these conversations. These sessions are intended to improve digital literacy of our participants, which are the parents. This will be done through first the education about the guidelines that we're drafting and the best practices that we've put together. We'll also be inviting guest speakers from different backgrounds and subject matter expertise to talk to different considerations that relate to these issues. So for example, a research center whose recently conducted survey found that minorities are at a greater risk of encountering online harassment. So we feel that this is something that participants should be aware of as they're considering these different issues. And then lastly, making sure there's a dedicated section to facilitated group activities where participants can engage and talk about different issues related to the metaverse. So basically increasing their meta literacy through this bottom-up engagement approach. Our findings from these workshops are going to inform further iterations of the guidelines, and we're going to make sure that there's a feedback form that's going to be filled out by the participants as a way to evaluate how the sessions are going and how we can improve things in moving forward. And the second component will be the educational campaigns. We are planning on doing this through partnership with civic organizations, but as well as media companies and local governments and metaverse companies who may be able to provide support through their corporate social responsibility departments. So the social media campaigns are going to be national, and they're going to be kept simple in order to be accessible to viewers of all backgrounds and digital literacy levels. And the focus is going to be just on making sure there's some sort of effort to get people thinking about the metaverse and bringing some light on the issues that the risks that may be coming up for youth as they're engaging in this space.
So we're adopting multi-stakeholders in this approach, and we hope to engage as much stakeholders as possible, including parents and children, of course, civil society organizations, XR safety, child safety initiative as our partner, metaverse companies, media and advertising agencies, and lastly, schools, libraries, and other local institutions. Anticipated risks and mitigation strategy. So we've put some risks, but we don't think it will be limited to them because many risks can come up during the development of the metaverse. So risk number one, including quickly developing policy and technological changes in the metaverse. And we recommend to have this document as a living document and to continue editing it. And of course, ensuring culture competence in the guidelines. So these guidelines are focused on the US, but this can be changed from one culture to another, even in the same community. So reachability is another risk, and we hope by adopting multi-stakeholders and collaborations, we can reach more communities and institutions. As for risk number 4, underprivileged parents may not have the time to participate in sensitization campaigns. We try to target outreach to these parents with additional economic support.
So the desired outcomes for the strategies that we've laid out here is for parents to be more informed about how to successfully prepare their children as they engage in the metaverse. We also hope that children become more receptive to the guidance that's directed to them from their parents as a result of the campaigning and the workshop strategies and the development of the guidelines. The harms experienced by children will be reduced as a result of this, this community-based approach that we're proposing. We feel that the children, the parents, and the companies all engaged in the metaverse space can all benefit from this type of an approach. When children have a safer environment to engage in, the parents will be reassured, and they'll also be able to work together to maybe unlock the potentials of these spaces. And this can ultimately help benefit the companies in the long run. We are mindful of the impact on marginalized communities and how that can be unique. So, keeping in mind the impact and experiences of users online will vary depending on their background, socioeconomic status, whether their parents' first language is English, all those types of important considerations. And also keeping in mind that an education campaign or even like workshop sessions may privilege higher income parents who would have the excess time and capacity to dedicate to this type of a campaign. So these are all considerations that we would keep in mind as we're implementing the strategy. And with that, we hope you've enjoyed our presentation and look forward to hearing your feedback.
We also want to make sure to thank our partners, Luisa and Tracy, who played a big role in helping with these slides.